Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Nathan Fox. With me is Ben Olson. We are the founders of LSATdemon.com and the weekly podcast Thinking LSAT. We have an email in front of us from Jake. Subject is getting better with flaw questions.
Hi, Ben and Nathan. I'm reaching out with a concern in my ability to successfully answer flaw questions. I have no issues whatsoever finding the flaw / what's wrong in the argument for every single flaw question I do. Okay. I then put that anticipation into a well-formed, well-thought-out sentence to describe the flaw.
I can already tell you don't know what you're talking about. It's quite, I think you're doing a couple things wrong, Jake. One, it really seems like you know the question type before you're reading the passage or the argument, because you're like deploying a flaw question strategy. Maybe you're only talking about doing this in review, but in real life, if you're doing it our way, you're not reading the question first, you're just reading the argument. And when you read the argument, if there's some bogus thing there, you're going to go, hey, wait a minute, that's what's that? You're not allowed to do that. What you're like making objections, right? What about this? What about that? What about the other thing? You seem to be confusing this for that, or like, what are you doing? You're not even responding to what the other person said, or whatever. You're just like, in common sense terms, you're mad at the passage.
You're not describing the flaw in some technical sense.
No. This seems like somebody who thinks that like, oh, every flaw question has a certain type of flaw
Category.
that can, yes, a category of flaw. And I have memorized all these categories, these different flaws. And every time I'm going to put that anticipation into a well-formed, well-thought-out sentence to describe the flaw. That's all a big waste of time. I don't do that. I don't have a well-formed sentence to describe the flaw. I'm just like, well, wait, you said this, but that your conclusion's that. What about this? It's like it's so much less. It really feels like, and sorry I interrupted you halfway through the email, but it really feels like Jake is doing a LSAT dogma. Like, this is how you do a flaw question. Where the real way to do it is, no, this is how you do LSAT logical reasoning. You attack the arguments, you poke holes in the arguments, you tell them what's wrong with their argument as you're reading the argument, not like label the flaw. But anyway.
I do want to say one more thing, and that is that, Jake, this is an email, so who knows, but you said I have no issues whatsoever. Usually that's the biggest problem, so I'm surprised you never make this mistake. But also you say finding the flaw. A lot of arguments have multiple flaws. And the best test takers are like, yeah, what about this? Yeah, right. What about that? What about this? Not that you need to make up flaws that aren't there. Sometimes there is only one flaw. But usually I have 2, sometimes 3 objections. And then when I go into the question, I realize it's a flaw question. I'm not surprised to see that the correct answer is one of my objections or related to. Yeah.
Well, one of the answers turns out to be a fair way of describing something that they did that is related to one of your objections that you made, but wildly unpredictable often, the language that they'll use to describe the flaw.
No, we're not predicting how they're going to describe exactly. I mean, sometimes you can, but that's pretty rare.
Well, they could straightforwardly just say, here's what you did, but they can also, in the answer choice, put fails to consider the possibility that. And then the objection could be some objection that's not even one of the objections you made. It's just some other objection that would also point out a similar hole in the argument. So it just really seems to me that Jake thinks that he should be able to like verbatim predict what the answer is going to say on a question like this. You get what I'm saying, I think.
I do.
And
Yeah.
unsurprisingly, let's read the next sentence.
Okay. Jake continues. I'm not getting these right because I crumble when I get to the answer choices. I
Yeah,
often
of course you do,
You're not
because
prepared enough. Yeah.
well, you're prepared in the wrong way.
Yeah.
You're like, he's going into these answer choices thinking, all right, I've got my well formed, well thought out sentence here that perfectly describes the one singular flaw that
Hmm.
I found in this argument.
Hmm.
And then none of the five answers match what he predicted. But he's not like rolling with it enough to go, oh, I see what
Oh,
this
that's
one
happening, and
says
that's a
that,
problem. Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Cool. He continues, I often find that I'm trying to convince myself that an answer choice can fit into a scenario that matches my anticipation. Interesting wording. My anticipation is always right.
No, it's not.
But the answer choice I pick very frequently doesn't end up matching what I've anticipated, even though I'm convinced it does. Yeah. I mean, they write some of these wrong answers in anticipation of what you might be thinking and hope that you try to shoehorn it in. Given this struggle, you have any suggestions as to how I can improve? Stop reading the question first. Start reading every sentence in an argument carefully. When you get to the conclusion, decide whether or not the conclusion is proven or not. And if it's not proven, why not? And there could be multiple reasons.
Yeah. If this was like somebody who worked for us, if this was uh LSAT teacher with a 176 on record,
Hmm.
and they tried to tell me my anticipation is always right,
Hmm.
I would both bend to it. We're both just like, what?
My
No.
anticipations are not always right. Like,
Neither are mine, obviously. And so anybody who says, oh, my anticipation is always right, does not know the game that they're playing. You
yeah.
have to be able to roll with it. Arguments can contain multiple flaws. They can describe flaws in unexpected ways. They can turn a flaw question into basically a weakened question by saying overlooks the possibility that uh, there's just a lot more going on here than Jake really understands. And it's quite common that students think they know more than they really know. But you got a little humility here would be helpful, Jake, because you definitely have to be open to the possibility that you did not exactly perfectly predict the answer when you clearly did not exactly perfectly predict the answer.
Yeah.
Otherwise, well, why are you missing these questions?
Yeah.
Do we want to do this question by an answer by example?
We could try it. Do you want to read it?
Sure.
Okay.
So this is a question from Test D. These are questions that our team wrote. And here's what we wrote. Meteorologists at Storm Safe Technologies have predicted an unusually high chance of a severe hurricane making landfall on the Gulf Coast this year.
Okay. I don't know what to make of that other than there's a group of people who may or may be good at their job, may not be good at their job. I have no idea. And they're saying, look, a severe hurricane is unusually likely to happen on the Gulf Coast this year. Okay. Thanks.
And
Do you have evidence for that? That's why I'm curious. Yeah.
if we're talking about the Gulf Coast of the United States,
Mm-hmm.
the Gulf of America.
Oh, now I know what you're talking about. Thanks.
Yeah. um, no, if we're talking about the Gulf Coast, Florida, Louisiana, whatever,
Yeah.
then an unusually high chance of a severe hurricane making landfall, that would be like, well, don't they have hurricane seasons like every year? Isn't there some
Yeah.
chance of a severe
Sure.
hurricane? So if
So
it's an
it's like a
unusually high chance, in my experience, right, in my 50 years now of life, there's a lot of hurricanes that hit the Gulf Coast.
every year. Mm-hmm.
Seems like. Seems
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll continue. These experts note that their predictive model is highly advanced, expressing utmost confidence in its accuracy.
Okay, these people are making a claim. I'm like, fine, might be true, it might not be true. I'm looking for evidence, but the only evidence we've been given so far is their assurance that their model is highly advanced and they're really confident in it. That's great, but I'm still not convinced. I'm just taking their word for it, which
Yeah.
is not much.
Well, and I might even be able to accept highly advanced as a premise and say,
Yeah,
oh, yeah, it's highly advanced. But you know what else is highly advanced? ChatGPT 5. And that shit makes mistakes all the time.
sure. So you're assuming that because it's advanced, it's going to be good. Sometimes the simpler solution is actually better.
Mm-hmm. All right. Last sentence. Given their level of certainty, it is reasonable to conclude that a severe hurricane making landfall on the Gulf Coast this year is likely.
I don't have any reason to believe that their certainty is well founded. So it is not reasonable to conclude that on that basis. It's interesting that the conclusion says it like softens it a bit, right? It doesn't even say that a severe hurricane is very likely or unusually likely to make landfall. It just says is likely. But still, given their level of certainty, I don't think that's great evidence for this conclusion. So I would say, not so sure.
Yeah, these people are meteorologists. So, I would have to, I think, give them some credit. Although, then again, it's not like these are meteorologists
At the news station.
at MIT or whatever.
Yeah.
They're meteorologists at Storm Safe Technologies.
Might be trying to sell something. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I guess last objection that I might make here is how do we know, like, how often do hurricanes hit the Gulf Coast? We
I would
don't
love to
have
know that. Yeah.
because we don't have to be talking about the Gulf Coast of the United States. We could be talking
Hmm.
about the Gulf Coast of some other place where they don't ever 1% of the time,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
So then likely, which is more than 50% of the time, could be a wildly strong
And
claim. Yeah.
that I think is the problem, right? Or it's at least one big
It's
problem
one big problem.
is that more likely than usual just means more than whatever the base rate is.
Hmm.
But when they conclude that it's likely, not that now means more than 50% of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if the base rate is 10%, 15%, 20%, 30%, you could have, oh, the base rate's 30%, and this is an unusually high chance this year. It's 45%.
Hmm.
Okay, but that's still not likely. It's still less likely than likely.
Totally.
Okay.
Cool.
So none of that was a well-formed whatever, right? That was all just attacking the.
That was just us mumbling through it. Yeah.
Well, that's how it is, though. I mean, that's what your thought process really
Yeah.
is just attacking that logic.
Hmm.
Okay, so it does turn out to be a flaw question. The reasoning above is flawed in that it what? So we're going to go into these answer choices looking for the thing that they did wrong.
Okay.
We just have to be able to say, okay, they did this, and it's a problem that they did it.
Yep.
So did they, A, conflate two distinct senses of a key term?
I'm just going to say no because I didn't have any problems with terms being reused in different ways. It's not like they said Gulf Coast at one point and then said it again. And I thought, wait, they might be talking about a different Gulf Coast
Okay. Or hurricane
or
might
anything.
mean
Yeah.
something different
Hmm.
in different, they just didn't do that, right? There wasn't okay, you said the word here meaning one thing and then said the word over here meaning another thing.
Hmm.
All right. Did they B, draw a conclusion based solely on the opinion of experts?
Hmm. It does say in the conclusion, given their level of certainty.
Mm-hmm.
So it is drawing a conclusion on the basis of their opinion
But is it a
and
flaw to draw a conclusion based on the opinion of experts?
Maybe not.
I mean, if they were like, if these same experts said, by the way, the base rate is 90%, and then you conclude solely on their testimony that hurricane this year is likely, I just don't think it's a flaw. I don't think it's a problem to draw a conclusion based solely on the opinion of experts.
Hmm. I think it could. I mean, experts can be wrong. I would keep this open. I would say, okay, seems like they
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen it,
primarily.
though. If it's experts testifying in their field, I just don't think that that's going to be
Hmm.
what we're going for. There were
Okay.
there were bigger problems with this argument, I think.
Okay.
C. Did they infer that individuals are experts on a topic solely because the methodological framework with which they approach that topic is sophisticated?
I don't know why they thought they were experts. They just asserted that they were, and they noted that they were at this company.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is the problem, and nor
They
is it the
described
conclusion. Yeah.
they described them as meteorologists. It's a
Yeah.
premise of the argument that
It's
these
a
people are
given.
meteorologists.
Yeah.
They're not making a conclusion like, oh, well, these people must know what they're talking about because look at this technical shit they use. It's kind of
Yeah.
the other way around, right? It's more like,
Yeah.
well, they are meteorologists,
So it's probably
so we
legit.
can trust them when they say, yeah, exactly. I think C is kind of a very wordy way of describing the kind of the reverse of what they actually did. How about how about D? Infers a shift in real world conditions from refinements in conceptual modeling.
I don't. I don't think they're doing that. I don't
Right.
think they're saying, "Oh, what is that even saying? That there's going to be a change in the season's hurricanes likelihood because we've changed the way we assess it?" That's
Right.
crazy.
Because
Yeah.
the model itself, like the programming of the code of the model or whatever changed.
Yeah.
And because of that, then that's going to actually affect the weather. And that
Mm-hmm.
no one's making that kind of a claim. So they did not do what D is describing. It would be a big problem if they did do what D is describing.
Mm-hmm.
I think C, it would be a problem if they did that as well.
Mm.
A, it would be a problem if they did that as well. I think B, they kind of did it and it's just not a problem.
Hmm.
E,
I'm
infers that
still
an
keeping it
outcome.
open, just to be
Yeah,
clear. So
not me.
you've crossed it out. I'm keeping it open. Yep.
I've
E.
crossed it out. E, infers that an outcome is likely based solely on experts' conviction that it is more probable than usual.
Okay, well, they literally did that. They said that they infers just means concludes. So they concluded that an outcome is likely. They said likely in the conclusion, based solely on experts' conviction that it is more probable than usual. And that's the same as saying unusually high, more probable than usual. Yeah, I like this better than B. And this actually gets to the problem you were hammering on at the very end. Just because something is more probable doesn't mean it's now above that 50% threshold.
Yeah, I know for sure they did that. And I know that that is a problem because it's the difference between absolutes and like relatives, right? If you say it's likely, you mean it's over 50%. Whereas unusually high, I don't know what you mean by that because 5% is way more than 1%. So that's what we could be dealing with here. And if that's the case, then their conclusion about likely is not justified.
Yeah. I'm not sure B is not a problem, but I agree 100% that C is a way bigger problem. It's much more obviously a problem. Like you can't debate that.
Checking the answer, it's E. A lot of people do pick B. I want to caution people though. You'd have to show me a question where it is described as a flaw on the LSAT to rely on the opinion of experts when they are
Solely.
testifying in their field. I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking real world experience, right? Drawing a
But
conclusion based solely on the opinion of experts. It seems like
yeah, I know, but um
seems risky.
especially when the conclusion is sort of soft, right? Like they're not saying this is guaranteed. They're just saying
It
it's
is
likely.
reasonable to conclude. I think that's okay, fair enough. This particular conclusion saying it's reasonable to conclude If you say something is in fact true
Yeah.
because
And it's even
opinions.
sort of like qualifying it, right? By saying, given their level of certainty, it's reasonable to conclude that this is likely. Well,
Mm-hmm.
if all you've got is a bunch of meteorologists and their model that they say is fancy, it doesn't like what are you going to say? They're wrong?
I'm with you at the it is reasonable. Because that's
Hmm.
different from saying it is in fact
This will
true.
happen. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that also helps. Yeah, okay. That's another good way of getting past B. Not only
Mm-hmm.
that, but they definitely did what he's describing.
Yes, 100%. Yep.
Yeah, and that is a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, that seemed like it worked out.
Yeah. Hope that was helpful. We're just pointing out problems as we read the argument. And
Mhm.
then when we get into the answers, we have that framework, that background, and we're just reading each one and saying, did this happen? If it did, is that a problem? That was our whole debate with B. We said, yeah, this did happen. The question then became, is this a problem? I thought it might be. Looking at it more close, I mean, E is obviously better, but now looking at it more closely, I don't think it is a problem because of it is reasonable. So it fails that second test.
Yeah, and Jake seemed to think there's like one flaw in
Mm,
every flaw question.
mm-hmm,
Notice what Ben and I were doing some debating between hey, are you relying too heavily on these experts?
mm-hmm,
Hey, this model is highly advanced, but does that mean it's right?
mm-hmm.
And then
What
also
golf are you talking about? Yeah.
what golf are you talking about? Also the more likely versus likely. There's just a lot more going on.
Mm-hmm,
And then you
mm-hmm.
find the one answer where you look at that and you go, you know what? They definitely did that. And it is definitely a problem that they did that. And I can sidestep these other answers. And so I have to pick the one that feels safe because I know for sure they did it and it's bad that they did it.
And that's not to say that there couldn't be a different answer if E were gone that could also work perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like this
And
does that's why the well-formed, I've described the
yeah.
flaw, and it's like, yeah, but there are multiple ways to describe this flaw,
Mhm.
variants of this flaw. You could say something, you could start talking about how the Gulf Coast has a base rate that's
Well,
lower than 50%.
and maybe even if you replace E with a total garbage answer, I could actually pick B because we're supposed to pick the best answer.
Yeah.
So, like, I can see both sides. I can argue
Mm-hmm.
back for B and go, well, wait a second. You don't seem like you have very much here besides these experts.
At a company.
Yeah. And you're drawing a conclusion based solely on their opinion. And so if I don't have any other better way of attacking you, then I would go with that.
Mm-hmm.
But here I do have a other better way of attacking you, so I'm gonna go with that instead.
Yeah. Cool.
Um, great. Thank you for writing in, Jake.
Email daily at lsatdemon.com if you'd like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thanks for listening.